I recognize the member for St. Peter.
First, Mr. Speaker, I will once again like to apologize for my absence yesterday, but I've been battling a flu and I had to recuperate, so I didn't want to be coming and coughing down the Honorable House, but I'm feeling much better today. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the Appropriation Bill of 2023 with this Honorable House seeking permission to spend $972,276,140 in this fiscal year. Before I do that, Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I did not say it is indeed a great joy and honor to return to this august House, this Honorable House. And I feel great pride by the people of St. Peter who have sent me here for the 5th consecutive term and in an overwhelming and convincing manner. Despite all the odds against the people of St. Peter, despite having to run against 3 political parties, I came out victorious. It was a long journey for me. It was a difficult election, but I'm here once again in this Honorable House to serve my people with love, with care in my heart, and the sacred responsibility to represent them, to pass laws in their interests and in the interests of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Speaker. I want to also thank the Almighty God for the strength that He gave me throughout the campaign, my family, all my supporters, hard-working and dedicated campaign team, my office staff, and most of all, Mr. Speaker, before the untimely passing of my dear mother, the support and the strength and the courage that she gave me, I will never ever forget. So let us get on with the budget, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're here to debate today. I don't want you to tell me that I'm off-key. And I want to summarize, first of all, Mr. Speaker, the budget statement that the Honourable Prime Minister for the estimates and revenue of expenditure that he presented in this Honourable House for approval. The 2023 budget, Mr. Speaker, at page 31. Now the pages are a little misleading because in the final book that they presented to us and in the one that Morris Merchant circulated at the PDF has different pages by maybe 1 or 2, with the different headings also. But I used the PDF version, Mr. Speaker. And on page 31, it presents recurrent and capital expenditure, for which we need revenues of about $1.8 billion, it says, recurrent expenditure of $1.04 billion, capital expenditure of $161.2 million, debt payments of $605.8 million, and this, Mr. Speaker, is a 12.5% increase from the 2022 estimates approved by this Honourable House. And to fund this budget requirements of central government, the budget proposes recurrent revenue estimated at $1.03 billion, to come from direct tax revenue of $119.4 million, $738 million from indirect tax revenue, and non-tax revenue of $173.2 million, Mr. Speaker. In addition to that, you have capital receipts of $62 million and grant funding of $32.6 million. So total revenue and grants amounting to $1.13 billion to fund total expenditure of $1.8 billion. This leaves a financing gap, Mr. Speaker, of a whopping $677 million. A whopping $677 million. And to meet this requirement, the budget proposes that the Prime Minister presented to this Honourable House securities, and that is normal, to be issued on the Regional Securities Stock Exchange of $356 million, and loans and advances of approximately $321 million. But when you look at the expenditure, Mr. Speaker, the expenditure is broken down as follows, and I read. Wages and salaries, 425.9 million. Goods and services, 183.5 million. Transfers and grants, 163.9 million. Pensions and gratuities, 74.1 million. And interest payments, 146.5 million. My question to you, Mr. Speaker, is how much of those goods and services of the 183.5 million does the Ministry of Finance expect to settle in this fiscal year? Because there's still many outstanding contractors, business persons that are owed money by the government from going back 2020 during the pandemic, and we can understand what happened during the pandemic with the government finances, so we cannot blame them for that. But after that, 2021, 2022, you have small contractors in National Solid Waste that are owed over $4 million, Mr. Speaker. You have contractors at the Ministry of Public Works that are owed also. So out of that 183.5 million, it's good to say we are going to spend 183.5 million, but how much of that will we be settling arrears to those small little contractors and also to other business people who do business with the government? Then we turn to the capital budget, Mr. Speaker, and the capital budget is estimated at 161.2 million. And according to the budget statement, this public sector investment expenditure is geared to the foundation in 2023 for a continuing program strengthening, expanding the physical infrastructure of the country. Note, continuing and improving the physical infrastructure of the country. We will deal with certain of those proposals later in my presentation, Mr. Speaker. But the fiscal performance of the government for 2023, in this reset, recover, and revitalize budget, confirms that while we are struggling with revenue generation, that's what the Prime Minister said to this Honourable House, we are struggling with revenue generation, expenditure is climbing, debt is increasing, and government creates the impression that its management is so great. The management of the fiscal situation in the country is so great that the financial affairs of the country could not be any better. They paint a beautiful picture, beautiful words, well put together to mislead the country. Because in this budget year, Mr. Speaker, there's a huge revenue expenditure gap, I said, of $676.7 million. And that is to be, how are you to finance that? With more debt financing. So what are you going to do, Mr. Speaker? You're going to increase the debt. It's logical. The 2023 budget plan is to pay off nearly $0.75 billion, $750 million this year in public sector debt. And it calls for an addition of $1.2 billion more in borrowing. A further $1.2 billion in borrowing from both central government and statutory corporations. Because you've got to include the statutory corporations. Not because the statutory corporations are legal entities unto themselves, Mr. Speaker.
After all the mayors, reading.
Because when a statutory corporation borrows, Mr. Speaker, in more than ever, the central government is called upon to guarantee those loans. And it becomes a contingent liability on the central government balance sheet. And it is reflected in it as contingent liabilities, and the Prime Minister did report so, to be fair to him. But, Mr. Speaker, it means that the total debt of this country by the end of 2023 will be in the vicinity of a whopping $4.2 billion. And from his very speech, he says at the end of 2022, it was $3.8 billion. So you are going to increase the public debt of this country by the end of 2023 to $4.2 billion by all of these capital projects that the government has outlined. Yet the budget says at page 12, this government continues to regulate borrowing. Continues to regulate borrowing and is currently implementing a strategy to better manage outstanding obligations. Well, I can understand when he says he's going to try and refinance at lower interest rates and so forth, but you're surely not better managing or implementing borrowing. You're increasing borrowing. And now we come, Mr. Speaker, to employment, savings and economic security. The budget statement at page 3, I think it is, says that the real and tangible gains and benefits of our economic growth are readily seen in the increase in employment, the growth in savings in our banks, and the large investment in the private sector. Will you show me where is this large investment in the private sector that have happened in 2022? It is government spending. It is government capital projects, road construction, fixing government buildings. I don't see any private sector spending in 2020, or no substantial. And this disclosure at page 4 that in 2022, Mr. Speaker, more than 900 employed or self-employed persons were added to the list of registered workers at Social Security scheme as evidence of increasing employment is deliberately misleading. Why is it misleading? It's misleading. It's misleading, Mr. Speaker, because when they say they added that, the statement does not say. It does not say how many registered Social Security contributors dropped off in 2022. Because we know that 11,000, we were told by the Director of Social Security and by the Prime Minister, that 11,000 Social Security contributors dropped off the register in 2020 during the pandemic. And still up to now, in 2023, 2,500 have not resumed or resurfaced on Social Security. So there is no clear evidence of any increase in customary employment levels.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Those are self-employed persons.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. My former colleague and experienced
Just a minute. Member for St. Peter, there's a point of order. Thank you.
As the government's whip, Mr. Speaker, and this particular presenter is an experienced politician, I want to draw this House's attention to Rule 39, subsection 10, which states quite clearly, a member shall not read his speech except with the leave of the Speaker, but he may read extracts from books or papers instead of his argument, and he may refresh his memory by reference to written notes, and he can use computers, etc. Now, this member is experienced. He's a friend of mine. But you must follow the rules. Stop reading your speech. Do like them, us. Debate, not read, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker,
If you are reading your speech, Member for St. Peter, you will need to cease doing so.
I'm not, sir. I'm
no matter how
quoting-
cleverly it's done.
I'm quoting from the Prime Minister's budget statement. I'm making references, Mr. Speaker, to the sections in the Prime Minister's budget statement that deals with the capital expenditure. How is he going to finance it? The debt, the Social Security, the 900 persons that he's added on. I'm not reading my speech. I have notes. And I, like everybody else, I have to refer to my notes. I'm experienced debating this House
Will you allow me
for
to
22 years.
Member for St. Peter,
Yes, sir.
I accept that some of what you say is correct. You have been quoting from certain documents, but you have been reading your speech in between. I can see it. You
I
have
can
it on
refer
your
to my
left. You
speech.
have it on your left, and you read it, and you're good at it. But if you're reading, and if I think you're reading a speech, I'm going to tell you that the ruling is that you're not to read your speech.
You can stop me if you
No
think so.
parts of it. In other words, you can't just say something and then read.
No problem, sir, but I can
debate.
refer to my notes, though.
Refer to notes and extracts. You cannot read.
I will
portion-
not be reading.
You cannot read either your speech or portions of your speech.
Okay, but I can refer to my notes. So I continue, Mr. Speaker. On page 4 of the Prime Minister's budget presentation, and you want to look at page 4, tell me if that is reading, that an expansion of $145 million. Now, Mr. Speaker, $145 million in household savings shows beyond any shred of doubt that greater income flow to our people. It's not true. It's a fallacy. It is a lie. And a few privileged business people and a few privileged people in this country who was doing well on the backs of poor people in this country. Those are the people who put the savings in the banks. Those are the people, not the poor people who are paying significantly higher prices for goods and services in this country. And Mr. Speaker, let us now go down to the supermarket, and I crave your indulgence. Let us go shopping and let me illustrate to this honorable house. Tell me if this is reading now, Mr. Speaker. Because while a few are doing well in this country, the majority of us is catching hell. And I say that without anybody to refute what I'm saying. Because when poor people have to go to the supermarkets in this country, and households are told, and we are told in the Prime Minister's speech, that government policies help to empower them to save where? And to save what? When you're making $700 a week as a construction worker in 2020 or before the pandemic, and after now you have the war in Ukraine and Russia, and you have worldwide inflation and prices going up and fuel going up, that $700 3 years ago, you know what the present value of that $700? Their salary has not increased. The prices have gone up in the supermarkets. The price of fuel has gone up on the world market. The price of the pump has gone up. They have not increased their prices in terms of their pay and their salaries and their wages. I cannot believe that the budget statement will reveal at page 3 that the total value of goods and services in GDP in Antigua and Barbuda increased by 8.5% in 2022. Inflation, Mr. Speaker, inflation, which is the key indicator, the general increase in prices and fall in purchasing value of money.
St. Peter, you're reading your speech again.
Mr. Speaker, I am quoting from what the Prime Minister, I have to quote the figures, page 5.
Member for St. Peter, let me make one thing clear. When I make a ruling, it's not open to question. That's what the standing orders say. You cannot stand and look at the speaker. Every other speaker that spoke for this entire, look towards the speaker when they speak. You have to look down to your left, because that's where your speech is written. And we're not foolish. You can tell when somebody is reading, even if you look up and then look down.
But I'm allowed to use my notes.
And if you continue to read your speech, there's going to be a consequence.
But am I not allowed to use my notes?
While you're on your feet, let me explain to the House that you have asked to use a visual aid in your presentation. I want you to know if that bag that is obstructing my view for you is the aid.
No.
It's not? Well, if it's not the aid, put it to your side, please.
No, but these are some things I want to show.
Put it out of my sight and the sight of the House.
Okay, well, I would like to use it as part of my aid.
Put it out to the side of the House. It's not an aid, you say? Fine.
Okay. Well, then I'll have to read out the prices from here, because the prices are on there.
But you can read the prices. There's nothing wrong with that. You know that that's allowed.
But I can read the prices, but I can't show the products. I can take them on one. Okay. All right, Mr. Speaker. Milk Dutch Lady, 1 liter. In 2020, Mr. Speaker, $4.17. 2023, yesterday at the supermarket, Mr. Speaker, $3.79. A whopping 31% increase. Sunshine cornflakes, and this is not the most expensive brand, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure you eat more expensive brands than this. Sunshine cornflakes, sorry. 340 grams. 2020, $2.79 for this. $6.99, 2020, $7.99, 14% increase. Flour, Mr. Sugar. Mr. Speaker, hear me calling you Mr. Sugar. Flour. Purity flour, 1 kilogram, 2020, $5.15. Now $5.45. That's not a big increase. Elbow pasta, $2.15 in 2020, $3.55 in 2023, a whopping 65% increase. 65. Lentils, 1 pound, $5.49, 2020, $6.99, 28% increase, Mr. Speaker. White potato, $2.95 per pound, $4.95 per pound now, 68% increase. Corned beef, Mr. Speaker. Yes, corned beef. $6.35 for this. $8.66 now, 36% increase. Rice, 1 kilogram, $3.15. 2023, $4.25. That's 30% increase, okay? For rice. No, I wasn't going to bring the pigtail. But saltfish gone up. Saltfish gone up a lot. I can tell you how much it's gone up, 12 ounces, from $10.95 to $14.25, 30% increase. For sardine, 5.5 ounces, $2.49 to $3.39, 36%. Sugar, brown sugar, $3.19 to $4.15, 30% increase. Protect soap, even soap gone up, $2.79 to $3.39. You know what? We have so many local people in Antigua that can make soap, and do make soap. And they can't even get a market at the Ministry of Trade, at the store you have at the Heritage Key, where they can sell all of those soaps and products. Yes? And Vienna sausage, Mr. Speaker, Libby's Vienna sausage, $2.79 to $3.99, 43% increase. Oh, you don't buy that? Poor people mustn't drink orange juice neither. They mustn't drink Tropicana orange juice neither. Why, that's too good for poor people? What are you saying? Well, you know how much it's gone up from? $26.89 to $33.29. And I could go on and on and on and on and on and on. And this brings us, Mr. Speaker, to harp on this low tax revenue, because according to this administration, the poor people of Antigua and Barbuda are saving, and they're saving all this money in the banks. Where's the savings? It's not from the poor people when they can't even go to the supermarket and afford to buy the necessities, Chicken wings gone up from $4.39 to $5.15. Chicken backs per pound, $2.79 to $3.15. Turkey drums per pound.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, a point of order.
While I do not challenge the increase in cost of living, as the Minister of Public Trade, I would certainly want to have the benefit of the source of the quotations so we can do investigations and make sure that at all times we're able to deal with the cost of living index in a manner that's acceptable to people. Just the source, that's all I ask for.
Yeah, well, quite frankly, what you say is correct, has a lot of merit. However, it's not really a point of order because it's nothing to do with the standing orders. And so it's not a point of order. I keep saying this, a point of order is only where there's a breach of the rule, the standing order, nothing else. But I take the point you make is valid, but then the House or member or the Prime Minister, when he wraps up, will have to deal with that and expose any sort of subterfuge or anything that you figure has not been properly put, can be put when the Prime Minister wraps up, and I'm sure he's capable of so doing.
I hope I get back all my time, Mr. Speaker.
What's that?
I hope I'll get back my time, because that was not a point of order.
Look, don't start that, you know.
No, but you said it's not a point of order.
Don't start that. It's a battle you will not win.
Or not win.
And another thing, if you want to say something to the Speaker, say it. Don't mumble it on the
No, I'm saying, I asked you, Mr. Speaker, I hope I will get back my time that I lost.
Let us proceed and let us see at the end of the time whether you can get back, because you don't get back time because a point of order has been made and it loses.
Okay.
But if you can show me the standing order that says I must give
that, sir. No problem. Mr. Speaker, I have nothing against the government trying to collect taxes and trying to let the business community stop tax avoidance and evasion. But, Mr. Speaker, as noted back in the 2020 budget statement, I believe it was, we said there's no personal income tax, there's no tax on interest, on earned, on savings in the banks or dividends, there's no inheritance tax, as you know, as a lawyer. There's no tax on capital gains, there's no tax on transfer when locals sell property at a profit. I guess you call that capital gains, am I correct? But I've said repeatedly in this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, especially in recent years, that Antigua and Barbuda's whole system needs to be overhauled in terms of the very generous tax concessions that we give out, not just to foreign investors, but to any large investment coming into your country. And you have to give concessions. We live in a competitive world. We don't live in a vacuum. And we want to attract direct foreign investment. The Minister of Tourism wants to attract new hotels. You want to attract factories. You want to attract niche industries, call centers, and so forth, Mr. Minister of Information Technology. So I'm not against concessions, but you have to weigh those concessions with the timeline and also with the value of the project. And most of these investors are coming and tell you, oh, I'm going to be spending 100 million, and we're spending 200 million US on a project. And there's no one in the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority who's actually sitting down like in the old days under Lester Burden economic development, when you had all these technicians sitting there, and sit with the technicians, the quantity surveyors, and go through the plans, go through the proposals. For example, Sandals say they're going to spend 100 million US on refurbishing the Grand Sandals this year. They just throw out figures. Elite Resort said they spent 100 million US on Hammer Cove. You know, and then they ask for the maximum amount of concessions that they can get under the law. They ask for whatever it is, 25 years, 30 years, no personal income tax, no corporation tax, no duty-free, ABST, RRC, and all importation of the building materials. So I have said since 2020 that government has to take an honest look at these endless tax concessions. Yes, I know that. I know that very well. The Prime Minister said he waived it for my house, but I didn't ask him to waive it for my house. I'm just telling you, I didn't ask him, the purchaser asked for it. But this massive tax giveaway, Mr. Speaker, is by far the most significant area of loss of revenue for the central government. And it facilitates the benefit of a privileged few in your society, and this is why we have this underperforming revenue. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the discretionary tax concessions that the Minister of Finance is allowed to give away, I would like to know and ask this Honourable House and the Prime Minister when he wraps up, how much millions of tax discretionary waivers he gave out 12 months prior to the last general elections, and give us a total. And tell this country how you emptied the Treasury to win an election, and now you're coming to tell us that you're going to broaden the tax base. In your own manifesto, on the third page, you say no increase in ABST. Big and broad here. No increase in ABST. And you go on to say that you're going to bring down the cost of electricity and water using renewable and green sources of energy such as solar power. You say you're going to also continue to incentivize further the agriculture and fishery sector to provide locally grown and more affordable food. Wow, what are you doing for the poor farmers in this country? I have farmers in Pears and Parham where APUA is telling them that they must pay $15,000 and $18,000 to bring water to their farms. Water pipes. It's outrageous. Some of them is $30,000. How you expect poor farmers in this country, Mr. Minister of Agriculture, to survive when APUA, who is a monopoly, you have an essential service as water that farmers cannot continue, they cannot grow their crops without water. And APUA is demanding that they're to bring and pay for pipes. After the pipes are placed, the farmers will pay for the water, and you should even subsidize a special water rate for farmers. You did. Okay, all right. But that's good, and I'm happy. When you do something good, I'm happy. But I'm saying it cannot be just, it cannot be right, it cannot be fair to those poor farmers when you have the head of government have a farm that has APUA water, 2 dams. He had to pay. He paid for all of those lights around the farm and everything too. Okay, all right, okay. But we must try to incentive, but he can afford to pay. Well, he can afford to pay, but why don't, I'm not personalizing it, I'm saying it must be a role model. The Prime Minister said you went into farming to be a role model for other farmers. Where's the role model? Where's the incentives? You all wouldn't even send the Ministry of Agriculture to plow up the people in their farms for free. For free. And they have to beg and run behind of you all. Oh, give me a break. Give me an aspirin. So I'm getting back to the point, Mr. Speaker, that we must pay, all of us must pay our fair share of taxes. The country cannot run without collecting their fair share of taxes. You have education, you have health care, you have roads, you have infrastructure, you have law reform, you have and the prison. I was very disappointed, Mr. Attorney General. I don't need to read no speech, I'm going to deal with it today. That you go on national television, not even 1 week after or 2 weeks after, and you were telling this country, after all of these years that you touted and advocated for a new prison, that you were saying we don't have the resources as yet, Mr. Speaker. And those inhumane conditions that are still going on,
That prison was built in 1735, and all the hundreds of millions of dollars that we collect from CIP money, we can't find $40, $50 million to build a new prison. And what happened to the one that the former minister, Lennox Weston, was building with those containers? What has become of that, Mr. Speaker? But I know ask Weston's collective responsibility over there. So you all spend a ton of taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. $5.5 million to spend with these containers. Only Chinese man can fit in them. The black prisoners can't fit in them. That's how they waste government resources in this country. They burn money. Weston said they burn money in the National House. And they burn, but he was burning too. He was burning plenty. Without tender, without any tender, I am calling on you, Honorable Attorney General, my learned friend, my erstwhile friend. You must fight for a new prison and fight for it this year. Putting a new prison boss and superintendent, that's one good step. That is excellent in terms of the security of the prison and so forth. Prisoners are not slaves, they're human beings. They cannot continue living and eating in those conditions there, where their slot pots are right there next to where they're eating and flies on their food next to where they defecate. It is inhuman. It is wrong. And until one day, one of your children or family or relative have to go up there, and then only then, maybe you will search your soul and say, no, we really need a new prison. It's great to have new projects and new hotels and create employment. We have to have new employment in the country. But our social services need to be fixed in this country. It is broken. And our institutions, as basic as a prison. What happened to the prison farm that we used to have? And the prisoners used to go out there and grow agriculture stuff. That is closed down. I've not heard anything about that for years. Pardon me? Only now, Penny Feather, but you have been the Minister of Attorney General for 9 years and responsible for the prison for 9 years. And I go back to this tax concessions, Mr. Speaker, because I speak in this House without fear or favor or ill will to no man. I was sent here by the good people of St. Peter to represent their interests, and so will I do. And I go off to toe no party line, or no whip. None. I speak freely from my conscience, and I'm saying the days must be now gone where 75% of government procurement and services, and you know what I'm speaking about, Mr. Speaker, goes to one ethnic group in this country. Must discontinue. It must discontinue. Our poor black people must also be entrepreneurs. And where is this economic powerhouse that the Prime Minister touted in 2014? Where is it? Is it only for one ethnic group? That they must control all the supplies of government procurement, even if we want benches or we want furniture made, every single thing, and then they get tax holidays on all their businesses for 25, 30 years. Cannot be right. Cannot. So let us reset. We speak about reset, we speak about recover, we speak about revitalize. Let us start with reset to secure empowerment for the entrepreneurial dreams and aspirations of our own indigenous people in this country. Because our own indigenous black people in this country represent over 70% of the population. And I'm no racist, but I'm speaking fact. Fact. 70% of our procurement cannot continue going to one ethnic class in this country. And I call no name. Over there, know who I'm speaking about. And let us reset, Mr. Speaker, against the practice of dishing out all these building materials exemptions and importation and ABST and RRC on everything, even furniture and furnishings they want. And Mr. Minister of Tourism, even some of the hotels, they even want linens, they want crockery, they want knife and fork. Can't be right. They said they're repairing and they're refurbishing, and they even want linens and crockery. Come on, a cap must be put on these things. What about all of these luxury residences at Mill Reef, at Jumbi Bay, at Burns Point? It's hundreds of millions of dollars in duty and customs duty and RRC and ABST that we waive every year. And I keep speaking about it in this honorable house. And the Prime Minister come back and say, oh, you got waive of stamp duty on your house at Lorry Bay. Well, I'm an Antiguan, although I didn't apply for it. And if I get that, I deserve it. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I must say, even PLH in Barbuda, the tax concessions, some of them are unnecessary. Sir Robin Yearwood, the Attorney General, and I don't have to lie on anybody, we sat in your office until 11 o'clock one night when we were going through those concessions with Sir Radford Hill, with Sir Raddy Hill. We are not even the trucks and the backhoes and the local heavy-duty equipment they wanted us to allow our people to bring in, and we had to scrap them out. Remember that? And you said not a damn. You said you will have none of it. And even Sir Robin Yearwood was firm. He said you can't give all them concessions to that man J.B. Turbiddy. He wanted everything lock, stock, and barrel. See, the Attorney General says true. Everything. These investors, as soon as their face look pink, and they come and they walk in with a little black briefcase, the cabinet embraced them and gone to give them the whole Antigua. All our land. Everything. Look at the special, look at the special economic zone down there. How much acres of land? Over 500 and something acres? Not Yeda, man, the special economic zone. Down at Burns Point, Western Imperial. The man sing, and he's a fraud, Mr. Speaker. He's gone away with everybody money owing people in court right now. And the government, not a drum is heard. Not a word is heard about this man. We touted that he's going to build universities and healthcare, and he's going to hotels, and he's going to do all kind of projects in this Western Economic Imperial Zone. And we sign. Mark Sears, bring the paper for Prime. Sign. No proper study is done. No proper due diligence is done on these investors to make sure that they're bona fide, that they're legitimate. They're coming into your country. You want to check them out and make sure who they are. But if a local black indigenous man like Saeed Green apply for some land in Antigua, he can't get the land. Can't get it. His own board is sitting cabinet and he can't get it to do a development, a tourism development. Yes, he don't have the necessary capital to develop it. But what is wrong if we lease him or sell him the land and he go on joint venture with another person? There's absolutely nothing wrong. Murby Resorts is not doing the same thing in Barbuda with the old Dulcina Hotel. It's over 30 acres. It's about 32 acres. For what? Yeah, I know. It was first 15 acres and then 30 acres. So what is wrong if Saeed Green applied to this government and he's been blocked and told, oh, you have no money? You have no money. You can't get the land. And you have a cabinet decision. And they take back, yes, and they take back the land from him. Treat him like dirt. Like dirt. His own brother wouldn't even get up and fight for him. But I can't expect him to fight for him. Ask him what? So let us reset, Mr. Speaker, about the unjust procedures, the waive of tenders, that's the next issue. All these waivers of tenders that we give, we use the pandemic as an excuse. And we just say it's emergency. Ministry of Health needs money. We need to fix up the whole Alberton. We need to do this. We need to do NTC Center. All Treasury building needs to be fixed. PDO roof needs to come off. I mean, Hilroy Humphreys did call me Hurricane Lewis when I was billing roads go up in Vernon's and Lindsay Hill in Parham. That's the last time we got any roads. But the former Minister of Public Works was more than a hurricane. He was a tornado. I mean, tornado, man. He was just billing and repairing things and without no tender. Even the reverse osmosis plants, Mr. New Minister of APA, you all say you all have spent $130 million on. I don't know if it's US or EC, Mr. Speaker. No tender. I can tell you for a fact, there have never been a tender for any of those reverse osmosis plants that land in this country. Never, not even one. They were all awarded to one company called Waterworks out of Canada. And Waterworks is a middleman who is buying them from manufacturers in Dubai. Waterworks in Canada. And he buys them, the plant from Dubai. Waterworks is a middleman. I mean, come on. No tender. 130 million. If Asot Michael did that, you would hear how Asot Michael is corrupt. Don't fit to hold public office again. And the Minister of Finance, and his title says corporate governance and good governance. He presides over a government where a chosen few individuals and companies are chosen just for road repairs. Some of them don't even know how to sign their name when they go to the Treasury to pick up their check. And being given millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you have other competent people that can do road construction in this country. And you basically have two crown agents, one a Syrian and another one non-Syrian, that are building concrete roads all over the country. I'm not talking about Cow Williams, you know. Cow Williams is a reputable firm. And not only roads, you know. They're also refurbishing and repairing and building government buildings. These two contractors alone, only they have competence. So what happened to people like Everett Roberts, Mr. Minister? What happened to other people? I hope the new good minister will see it in your new ministry that has been added to you. To go out and speak to some of these older contractors like George Ryan, like Everett Roberts, and get some technical advice from them. You may not want to award them the contracts or whatever, but there cannot be so many government contracts for repair of government buildings that has gone on for the last 9 years without tender. Why do we have a tenders board? All we're doing is wave up tender, wave up tender, wave up tender. I can understand in the pandemic year. Okay, that's a different scenario. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to reset that the economic opportunities from public works are trickled down and paid for by the sweat and toil of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Is not just for few or favored choices of the former minister. I'm not blaming you. You are new into the job, and I commend you on your new portfolio. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the revenue and expenditure reforms proposed in this year's budget again miss the importance of these reset priorities. And are we really to believe the Prime Minister is now only realizing, only now in 2023, that he needs to curtail all of these discretionary waivers? Only now he's realizing that all the giveaways, how he emptied the Treasury to win the election, and even only won by 1 seat? Only now a responsible, fiscally responsible Minister of Finance, a former banker, is only now realizing that he needs to prioritize all of these things? Come on, Mr. Speaker. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, or through you, in the ALP manifesto, and I quote on page 8 with your permission, it says where possible to reduce ABST on more products, and in any event to continue programs to reduce or remove the ABST on goods. But, Mr. Speaker, when we look now in the Prime Minister's budget statement, it says we're going to broaden the ABST. So the reforms listed at page 15 and 16 of this budget statement, and with your permission I quote, it says an across-the-board suspension of non-statutory tax exemptions, which means the ABST, the RRC, the environmental levy, they say, must not be waived in any circumstances whatsoever and must be paid in all circumstances, and a 50% reduction in customs duties. Then he goes on to say the discontinuation of the system for exchanges of customs, apart from exceptional circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I take umbrage with this. I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair to certain businesses that are owed millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars by central government. They can't get their money out of the treasury. They owed rents. They owed for supplies and services that they've given to the government. Not maybe just for 1 year, maybe for 2-3 years. And you are saying only in exceptional circumstances. And who's going to make that decision? The cabinet, I assume. So it's going to be discretionary again. Friend and foe. Come on. You cannot ask businesses to continue paying their ABST, their corporation tax, their customs duties at the harbor, and you owe them millions of dollars at the same time. And you're saying you would discontinue the exchange of checks only in exceptional circumstances. That is unfair to business people. I have absolutely no problem when the Prime Minister says an overhaul of the issue and management of government contracts, especially through solid waste, because that really needs overhauling, Mr. Speaker. And public works, which I just dealt with, to ensure more equitable distribution of contracts. My question, and I'm glad he's here now, is only now he realized that we need to have equity in the system and not just 2 Crown agents. You know who they are. An increase in the property tax rate from 0.3% to 0.5% on residential properties valued at $3 million and more. Well, I'm sorry for them, they'll have to pay more. Anybody who have a house that's $3 million, I don't really have a problem with that. But you know, Mr. AG, you're going to have to pay a lot more in property tax. Is the hotel you're building up there? And let me tell you, 0.3% to 0.5 is a hell of a lot increase. But we need money to run the country, we need money for education, we need money for roads, we need money. I need money to do a lot of things in St. Peter this year, which I don't see a cent allocated in this budget, Mr. Speaker. So when all is said and done, in resetting the priorities, and we said we're resetting and recovering, and we're going to be resilient this year, Mr. Speaker, how are we resetting by putting more ABST and broadening the ABST? And I want to ask the Minister of Finance, when he wraps up, exactly what services and what goods does he intend to increase this ABST on? Because in his manifesto, he said he would not increase ABST, he will reduce it. And I come now to another area, Mr. Speaker, of the cost of living. In the 136-page 2023 election manifesto, and listen, we have to speak about the election, and the election that brought us in here. The election was just a few months ago. And if it wasn't for the election, we wouldn't be in here. So in this beautiful 136-page 2023 election manifesto, the Anti-Embargo Labour Party pledged 1. And I quote, to bring down the cost of electricity and water using renewable and green sources of energy such as wind. Well, that's a 9-year-old promise. Bring down the cost of electricity. And I saw Andrew Matthias, I witnessed him myself on ABS television when they had the groundbreaking for the APC joint venture with the US company for the LNG plant. And Mr. Burford asked him, well, do you think that the cost of electricity will come down in the near future? He said, not for the foreseeable future. Can you imagine? He said, not for the foreseeable future. And the reason is because APA heavily subsidizes water. But Andrew Matthias is my good friend, but that is not a policy decision of him to make. That is a policy decision for you, as the executive and as the cabinet, to decide when and how you will best be able to bring down electricity rates in this country. Because we promised the people since 2014 in our manifesto, 9 years ago, Mr. Speaker, since 2014, to bring down the cost of electricity in this country. Now, I know that fuel has gone up, and the price of fuel has gone up, and government has cushioned the price at terms of gasoline and diesel by removing the consumption tax, and I applaud them for that, and the gas vouchers to the taxi drivers. Yeah. They took a $40 million hit. Well, not APU took that. It was the consumption tax. Okay. But fuel is going to come down, price of oil is going to come back down. But you also said in this 136-page manifesto, Mr. Speaker, that where possible to reduce ABST and no increase in ABST, and to incentivize the agriculture and fisheries sectors to provide locally grown and more affordable food in this country. And you went at length, Honourable Member for St. George, in your presentation to speak about the food security, to speak about that they're not doing absolutely nothing to help in terms of food production, food security, and a ready market for our farmers, and to give any incentives to farmers. You did an excellent job in your presentation to outline the bare facts to this country. It's like if the Prime Minister did not care about agriculture. She was always on a plane. She didn't care about the farmers, just giving them lip service. Well, I have confidence in this new minister. I've seen you've already met with the farmers, and I have confidence in you that you will reset the priorities for farmers in this country. I heard you yesterday. I heard you. Then we speak about all these private and public sector projects, Mr. Speaker. We boast about them on page 23 and 25, but some of them, let me say, is recycle and cut and paste. Recycle and cut and paste. This $250 million Robert De Niro project has been around since 2014 with my dear cousin Gilbert Bustani. Since 2014, Robert De Niro is coming here. He came with Packer. Then Packer pulled out. Then he had the next group of investors. Then they pulled out. I mean, when is this $250 million Robert De Niro project going to get started in Barbuda, Mr. Member for Barbuda? Do you know? I look forward to the $130 million Murby high-end resorts. It used to be $20 million, Mr. Speaker. And I understand it's going to be developed by the father of the Prime Minister's wife, Mr. Purcell Bird. I applaud him and commend him if that's the same project, the Murby. But they said it's in collaboration with an unnamed, world-renowned luxury operator. Why not come out and tell us who is this world-known luxury operator? And they say they expect construction to start the fourth quarter of this year. We've been hearing that for 6 years, Mr. AG. The Carlisle Bay Resort, the high-end property located in Old Road, is supposed to expand its facility starting in August of this year. They say $120 million US. Who has valued the project? Who has looked at the plans? Which quantity surveyor? And I'm sure they've gotten 30 years tax holiday. The Moongate Hotel and Spa overlook in Half Moon Bay will continue construction this year. I'm not even aware they started construction. The first place I had told if they started. So replays out to the picture. And replays out to the picture. Replay. Because I warned you all about the replay. I told you all that replay, Mr. Speaker, had no money. But replay had no money, they had not a cent, and they took about passports to go and sell them. And we gave them passports, Mr. Speaker, replay. We gave them over 100 passports to fund the project out at Half Moon Bay. The same replay people that I told you and Gilby and Brian and Ellis have no money. I told you all they have no money. I was a poster boy minister of tourism, going to groundbreaking ceremonies and not even knowing who is the developer, who is the investor. I was told to show up at 1 at Friesdale Road, Businessman's Hotel that Joan Messiah signed. Where is that Businessman's Hotel? Then there's one up at the airport, Marriott Courtyard. Then there's one there. Mr. Waits will just call and say, Mr. Minister, you know, you have to show up 2 days from now to give a speech as Minister of Tourism for a groundbreaking ceremony. For a groundbreaking ceremony. It says about the Prime Minister, who deliberately gave me a ministry with just a nomenclature and undermined me from day one. That's what it says about him. That's what it says about him. Not about me. No. The task that I was given, which he allowed me to, which was to increase arrivals to this country, to market the tourism product, and to bring new airlift, and to bring those people into dredge the harbor along with the good Minister of Health, which he assisted, I accomplished. I could not be a minister in government and only Max Hurst and the Prime Minister know, and Joan Messiah did a businessman hotel coming on Faisal Road. I could not be a minister in a cabinet where the cabinet did not even know about this hotel at the airport, bought from some Bulgarian people in Bulgaria. But it was not even discussed in cabinet. Please. Your turn will soon coming. You wait. Your turn soon coming. Your turn coming from the head soon. At radio station you open. The budget statement also, Mr. Speaker, is you he have his eyes on. Not Malvin or Robin, they in their twilights, you. You. Mr. Speaker, the budget statement reveals government has been advised that the HMB property is being sold to an ultra-luxury brand in the UAE. Well, who is this ultra-luxury brand in the UAE? And we must not forget that this government owes $108 million, because it's reflected right here in the debt, $108 million, which we have not paid to HMB, and I'm sure the Attorney General knows that. And they propose only to pay $3.9 million this year. So I hope when the hotel is sold that you'll be able to make some more money available, Mr. Attorney General, to pay them off. And the promise of $100 million US, Mr. Speaker, to rebuild and invest in luxury homes in Jumbi Bay and Mill Reef for a number of years. That is recycled. That is cut and paste. How many homes have gone up in Jumbi Bay and Mill Reef in the last 10 years? Tell us. How many? Other than the house that Baron Lon Thyssen is building. How many new homes have been built in Jumbi Bay or Mill Reef? 10? They've sold. They've sold homes. At Mill Reef, I knew every year the homeowners, they refurbish their homes and they pay no tax, they pay no ABST, they pay no duty, they pay no customs, RRC. It's a free-for-all up at Mill Reef going on for 40 years. And that must come to an end. I know, though, and I must congratulate Mr. Foster Frattarelli and the actor's son, the Frenchman, the film actor, Belmondo, for the houses that they're building at Windward. At least we can see some progress there. But what become of Fern's Point, Mr. Speaker? Where's all these million-dollar villas that you all promised in 2020 and 2021 at Fern's Point? All of they've been doing is selling land down there. They don't even have 7 houses being built, but they're selling land for astronomical prices, $14 million to Rothschild and this. We want development. We want houses. So they can pay Social Security, they can employ gardeners and maids, and they can pay property tax, and they can go to the supermarket. We don't want just a sale of lands, Mr. Speaker. Over the last years, man, you all have touted over $2 billion United States dollars, the Prime Minister says. The $25 million airport Marriott in 2021, nothing, nada. The $100 million beach club at Fort James was the Minister of Tourism with Royal Caribbean. Where's that? You spoke about it, I heard you, but where's it? Speaking about it, Lester Bird say tired of just speaking and just having one waking. You hear what the honorable member tell you? He don't want bread to eat, he want pudding to yum. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, you're telling us that for 4 years. $100 million. And up to now it can't come off the ground. Where's the $80 million Kalalukay that you all touted at Morris Bay with the Sheikh Tariq? Where's that? He took back the land. The Prime Minister told us he never gave them the land. in the first place. He never transferred the land in the first place, Mr. Speaker. And the work on the Yida project, my dear friend Yida, was set to advance in 2021, you all said, with a projected spend of US $100 million. Did Mr. Yida spend $100 million in 2021? What he built, an old factory up there, a restaurant that opened up to now, and some cottages, some villas. And then, you know, Mr. Speaker, but Cutie, why are you, Mr. AG, worrying about my time and this? You're vicious against me today, boy. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, for your benefit, there's a gentleman called Mr. Dean Foster that I understand has bought over 70% of the company of Yida of the lands on the mainland. And this has happened and the Attorney General knows about it because he met with him. Are you not listening? And not a word has been told to this country, shrouded in secrecy, when we have been told that Yida will be one of the biggest investors in this country. Mr. Attorney General, you are fully aware that a gentleman called Mr. Dean Foster of Law II LLC, an Antiguan, have bought over 70%, he claimed to be your cousin from some distant family, bought over 70% of the shares. In fact, it's closer to 80% of the lands at Yida. He had the title deed, I saw them, transferred to his company. This happened over a year ago. You don't know about that? When you told the man that you will get all the concessions for him and that we will come to Parliament to pass a special land act to compel to acquire Ghana Island because Mr. Yida don't want to sell the shares in Ghana Island. But the country don't know about it. The cabinet don't know about it. None of you all know that Yida have sold 70% of his lands on the mainland. He's registered in the courthouse here. Go and do a search. Well, he claims that it's his company. Pardon me? Mr. Dean Foster, I've met him several times. You have met him, he's your cousin. The man bring a whole family tree and show me his old cousin from Old Road and people that he have family all the way, all over Antigua. He's Sherfield Bowen's cousin too. He's the Honorable Sherfield Bowen's cousin too, Mr. Speaker. Pardon me? There's a private sale, but the country should know. But I didn't ask the government to get involved. The government has been saying, the Prime Minister has been repeatedly saying that Yida is one of the biggest investors in the country, and you're going to have the audacity to ask me, Mr. Member, how is the government to get involved? The government has become transparent now and say, well, we have a shift now. This is what this company is going to be doing. This is what this new purchaser in Yida company will be doing, because he's seeking to buy out the entire thing. Were you the Minister of Tourism, you don't know? The Attorney General saying you don't know? But it's in the courthouse, the title deeds are registered. You can go and do a search. And I'm not putting down Yida, you know, don't get me wrong, you know. He invested a lot in terms of purchasing the land. He's invested a lot in terms of bringing in a lot of containers to build his factory. And, you know, all of the things at the port and so forth. He has paid his port charges and all of that, I assume. But he has not employed any Antiguans. I only see one Antiguan from Paramount, Piers, or St. Peter's working on the all Chinaman. That can't be right. What about this $550 million, Mr. Speaker, this one and only hotel, luxury hotel at Burns Point? Where is that? It's not in this budget statement this year. And the $100 million Armand Hotel project, Mr. Armand that does our CIP in Barbuda. Has he started that, Mr. Member of Barbuda? So we can't just keep each year coming, Mr. Speaker, and touting these things, making the country feel nice, sense of good feeling in the country, put them in a beautiful manifesto book, with beautiful pictures. You know, Namco was first of all supposed to assume 65% of the ownership of Jolly Beach. Now we're hearing that Calvin Ayre will be buying 1/3, well, at least Calvin Ayre puts his money where his mouth is. That I can say. But what about the Best Western Hotel? It started construction out there. And it's stagnant. It's stagnant for 3 years, the Best Western Hotel. By Mr. not Rob Barrett, Derek Barrett and Adam. I mean, come on. If these high-end investment boasts by the government have not materialized in the last 9 years, what confidence can we have that they will materialize these new projects that they talk about this year, Mr. Speaker? Then they include on the public sector projects in the Prime Minister's presentation, 70 million US, 190.2 million project at VC Bird International Airport. I guess that money will be borrowed by the Antigua and Barbuda Airport Authority, but it's still a contingent liability in the government's balance sheet. It still increases the government public sector debt, the national debt of the country. And whilst this project is presented in the budget statement, Mr. Speaker, we do not vote. When we go to vote in this House at the end and the conclusion of the budget debate, we don't vote for the Prime Minister's statement, you know. We vote for what is in these books. What is we're authorizing the recurrent and development expenditure. We vote for an appropriation bill, not what he says. So he presented in the budget on his to-do list that the government will be spending $70 million at VC Bird Airport. But the project is not in the capital expenditure, is not nowhere in the business plan of the central government, and is not in the development capital expenditure under your ministry. Come on. That's wrong. It's wrong accounting. It's misleading. It's a project, it's like if APUA is undertaking a project. You can't come in the Prime Minister's statement and your Prime Minister is supposed to speak about expenditure and revenue that central government is asking the Honorable House to pass. Not what Western Oil Company is doing, what APUA is doing, what CBH is doing, what Free Trade Zone is doing, what all the statutory authorities are doing, and then make it sound and mislead the country like if you were spending that money. It's wrong, because the $190 million loan will, however, end up in the public sector debt, as I said. It's government, central government's responsibility at the end of the day. If the Antigua and Barbuda Airport Authority cannot pay that loan, the government will be called upon to pay that more loan. And then you look at the Ministry of Tourism now. Correct. How you did it? You have to put it in the estimates. We put it in the estimates, and we put how much you spend in each fiscal year. You have to. You have to. Then you're misleading it. Then the deficit will be greater. And that's why I said the debt will be greater. But I bet you go back and see, it has been done since funds Derek days, Mr. Minister. It has been done since funds Derek days. It was done under Whitfield Harris. And since Keith Hurst, correct. It's a contingent liability on the government. You look at in the book here, page 697 and 698, Mr. Speaker, of the 2023 budget estimates for tourism, $460,000 for your whole ministry, for capital expenditure. For capital expenditure of this amount, only $78,793 is for tourism and investment. You can't even print a proper brochure because the Labour Party manifesto costs more than $78,000. You can't even print a proper, decent brochure for tourism with $78,000. But capital expenditure, you don't intend, Mr. Minister, to do anything for capital expenditure on the tourism? To put any of those beach security, nice things on the beaches so people can look out and see? But I don't want to listen, I want to see the figures in the book, man. You all can get them and say what you like. You only have $78,000 for capital expenditure for tourism. You will get it out. It's outrageous. You can't build no nice circles like in Barbados and beautify the country with tourism with $78,000. What you can do with $78,000? you get it done, but then don't come and mislead the House. You cannot put figures in a budget statement and they're not in the budget expenditure and revenue. This is what we vote upon, not the Prime Minister's statement misleading the country with his flowery words. It's nonsense. Same thing with roads, Mr. Speaker. In the capital expenditure, page 681 and 683 in this book for roads, they have $74.8 million for roads. And according to the budget statement on page 25, they said this will take care of Sydney Walling, Anchorage Road, Herbert's Potters, Old Palm Road, and renovation of Dark Road Bridge in 2023. But the budget statement said additionally, the Ministry of Works will spearhead our government strategy to improve community roadways so that by the end of 2023, road repair and maintenance work will progress substantially in every parish across Antigua and Barbuda. Every parish? Really? Every parish. But there's not one red cent, not one red cent in the capital expenditure for these ancillary roads and community roads. Of course it will be by special warrant and bust up the budget again. It's either you don't intend to do community roads, or you're going to have special warrants, Mr. New Minister of Housing and Public Works. But you don't have no money in here for these ancillary community roads, not one red cent in the capital expenditure for this purpose. So what it is, or maybe, Mr. Speaker, they intend to continue the crass victimization of the people of St. Peter. And this budget statement makes the excuse that it will be impossible to carry on the works, to quote, in every village or community in 1 year. Nonetheless, it seeks to give the assurance that there will be ongoing implementation of the road improvement for the benefit of all. But how, where, and when? How, where, and when? With no money in the budget for it. Mr. Speaker, I just want to draw to the attention of this Honorable House, because the Prime Minister has said over and over during the election campaign that I have not made any representation in this House, never, for infrastructure in my constituency. And Mr. Speaker, from being elected into this House in 2004 till now, I've always come here and cried and belabored the point about the dilapidated roads across St. Peter, that we have some of the worst roads across St. Peter. I hope they will show the slide that I asked permission for, but I don't see them showing them. I brought a lot of pictures to show the roads in St. Peter's and the craters in the roads. We can start there. You can look on the screen. That's Pace Village, Mr. Speaker. And these dilapidated roads, Mr. Speaker, over the years, have a look at them. I hope you can see from up there. Especially by successive governments, both UPP and ALP. But the UP government in the last 9 years in urgent need of repair. Mr. Speaker, and not next year, not 2 years from now, like when the Prime Minister asked me to have patience. The roads in Painters, they are abominable. They have craters in the roads in Painters, Mr. Speaker. There are ponds in some of the roads in Painters. Ponds. Cassie trees growing. They're not showing the slides. Cassie trees growing, Mr. Speaker, in the roads. Cassie trees, craters, look at that. When it rains, Mr. Speaker, that's Painters Court. How do you expect people to get from one end of their road to the next, or to get to their home? It is a disgrace. It is a disgrace. These people pay taxes like every other resident in this country. They're Antiguans and Barbudans. It is not right. And it's all over the constituency, in Painters, in Gunthrops, Lightfoot. Lightfoot and Gunthrops are probably the worst after Painters, the worst, Mr. Speaker. And I have said, you know, Mr. Speaker, if I was some of those people, and they made a video about it, it didn't bother me one way, because I mean it. If I was some of those constituents, I could not vote for anybody. I could not vote for anyone. And Mr. Speaker, it has been willfully and wantonly neglected because the Prime Minister of this country asked me to have patience in 2014 to give it to other new members who just won their seats. People like the Honourable Member for St. John's Wood North, and the new member, she's not here no more, for St. Mary South and City East, and to give them a chance to get infrastructure in their constituencies. Look at that. Look at that, Mr. Speaker. You think those are roads? You think that is right, Mr. Speaker? I want you to look up and clean up, Mr. Speaker. I want you to look at those craters, Mr. Speaker, and look at the TV screen, look at those ponds. And you think people must really traverse those roads with their shocks and their paths? It's inhuman. It's untenable. Cannot continue with cassie trees growing and overgrown bushes in my constituency roads. Which is wrong. They pay taxes, they're Antiguans. Some of these people have built their homes, they're first-time homeowners. Mr. Speaker, don't speak about the other facilities like the Parham Clinic that have been begging the erstwhile minister for years. He's been promising me since I was in cabinet, yes, I will get a clinic. Everybody just come and they can get new clinics from the Chinese government. If you take a drive and go up to that clinic in Parham, you will cry. You will cry for those elderly people. There's not even a veranda for them to sit on in the hot sun. Some of them have diabetes and high blood pressure. And rain coming and they have to have umbrella waiting to see the district doctor and the district nurse. Look at it. They're trying to paint it up. That's all people of St. Peter's can get. And if you go inside, if you see the roaches how it have infiltrated the whole place. Look at that. They put on some rotten galvanized on top of the roof that I had to go and change myself after 2020 or 2019. Look at that. Can that be a clinic? Can that be a clinic? 4,500 and something registered voters. St. Peter's has over 6,000 people inhabiting St. Peter's. And that's all we're given as a clinic? The one in Piers is non-existent for 7 years or 8 years. And they're opening a clinic today in Bowlands. And I'm thankful for the people of St. Mary South. And I'm glad for them. I'm not harping on anybody who gets a benefit. They're opening Cedar Grove. They're opening Carty's Hill. The one in Carty's Hill looks like a hospital. And the one down in City West in the Prime Minister's constituency is a big hospital. That's a mini Celeste Bird. And we can't get a clinic. We can't get a clinic. And people from Peer Village, asked to drive to Parham, elderly people, and there's not even a chair for them to sit on, not even a veranda for them to sit on. It's untenable. The sporting facilities in the constituency are horrible. And let me get back to the budget here for a minute. But he was going to show something there in the, I think it was the Parham Clinic. You can show it. Look at that. Look how inside of that look. That's the school, I think. Look at that. Can you imagine? I think that is one of the schools or the clinics, because you both Piers Primary School and Piers Secondary School and Parham School, Mr. Speaker, needs urgent, urgent attention, Mr. Minister. Urgent. It's disgraceful. Now that's the clinic still. Imagine that's a clinic, a medical facility. Look at it, look at the condition of that. Look at how that is, archaic. That looks something like a prison to me, from the Boer War. My God. The capital expenditure estimates in page 678 and 679 of 2023, Mr. Speaker, provide $1.4 million for agriculture, Mr. Minister, fisheries, and Barbuda. And of this amount, $250,000, Mr. Speaker, is for artisanal fishing in Barbuda. But according to the budget statement on page 25, the Prime Minister tells us that $6.6 million US, or $17.9 million, will be an energy resilience project on Barbuda. And this includes the underground electricity transmission lines. It includes reconnecting homes damaged and adding 410 kilowatts of generating capacity to support backup power generation in Barbuda. But, Mr. Speaker, the budget statement does not indicate the source of the $17.9 million. It does not tell us where the money is coming from, how much of it has been spent, how much is available in this fiscal year. It doesn't tell us. Absolutely no indication, Mr. Speaker. Also, the construction of the new multipurpose center in Barbuda, there's no estimate for it. There's no cost. There's no figure. The rehabilitation of the community center in Barbuda, they speak about it in the speech. But there's no figure in the capital expenditure, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely none for the council buildings. And you know, on pages 706 and 707 again of the 2023 budget plan estimates, there's $3.9 million for your ministry, Mr. Minister, member for St. John City East, for information, communication, technology, and for APUA. But none of this is to be spent by the central government on the production of water. Why is there nothing in the capital expenditure, Mr. Minister? You say of how much you're going to be spending in terms the Prime Minister announced in terms of new reverse osmosis plants, repiping the country, because those old copper pipes are unsustainable. Where in the budget can I look in the development or in the business plan to see how the central government intends to increase water production in this country? It appears that this platform is just to score cheap political points, make the announcement, where the money come from, whether CIP money is going to give you, or he's going to let APUA borrow money. But it must be reflected, Mr. Minister, through you, Mr. Speaker, in the budget. Pardon me? If I would like you to elucidate, no, because I'm not going to get back my time. You can tell me after. The Prime Minister can respond. This year, Mr. Speaker, we are told AP will invest $14 million US dollars, 38 million EC dollars in another reverse osmosis plant, which will be located in Bethesda. Am I correct? Correct. And another $38 million reverse osmosis plant to add to those already cost in excess of $130 million, which I said earlier, no bids. And I hope going forward, you will ensure, I know you are a good minister of transparency and accountability, and you will ensure that there are proper procurement procedures for these new reverse osmosis plants. Because, Mr. Speaker, the administration claims that it will now bring 10 million gallons of water, which I'm very happy for. Water is an essential service. So this business of shaming and blaming the APA workers and employers of blocking off water and all of that, Mr. Speaker, we have to do away with that. The water wars continue, insufficient distribution
The
to
honourable
homes.
member has just about 2 minutes left.
Okay, can I apply for 30 more minutes, please, Mr. Speaker? Can I get 30 additional minutes?
We had an agreement here. It was agreed with the House. You may not know because you haven't been here very often.
I heard the agreement.
However, it was decided 1 hour and a half to be able to complete the budget. That applies to you like everybody else.
Yes, sir.
So there will be no extra time. You have 1 minute left.
Well, I've gone my hour and a half. Have I taken up my hour and a half?
Yes, you've used off that.
Okay.
You're now at 2:20, and you started at 12:50 p.m.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I apologize.
Well,
Mr.
I didn't remind you. I should have, but knowing that you watch the clock.
No, I didn't.
I know you watch the clock, so I thought you would have realized it. But as I say, you may not have been here when we took that decision.
No, I know it's an hour and a half, but I didn't realize that I took an hour and a half. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to say to the people of this country that the elections are over. There's a government in place. We must run this country to the benefit of all. We must have fair and equitable resources, not just for the constituencies that are on the government side or on the Labour Party side, but for all 17 constituencies, Mr. Speaker. All. They're all taxpayers, they're all residents in each constituency, in each respective constituency. And the days of the old politics where you have UPP victimizing Labour Party constituencies and Labour Party victimizing UPP constituencies must be over with. If you truly want to build this country in love and peace and harmony, as the Attorney General said earlier this morning, and I listened to him, Mr. Speaker, then we must be honest with ourselves. We must rise above the petty politics. We must have a conversation, Mr. Speaker, with each other, not speaking down to each other, whether it be in this House or outside of the House, Mr. Speaker. We must realize the opposition is part of the government and the governance of the country. The NGOs, the churches, the unions, the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce, they must all be engaged, not because central government and the executive has a mandate to implement and execute government policy, that you must always take the policy, well, I am the government of the day, and it's my way or no other way. You must lend a listening ear. A great politician is a politician who listens, and listens widely, and listens to the people also, Mr. Speaker. And if I may just have 2 more or 3 more minutes, Mr. Speaker, to say this quickly. And I'm not saying this in no political way to bring down anyone. This country sent a strong message to the Labour Party, where 53% of the country voted against the Labour Party. Albeit they became the government of the day, with a born majority. So this government has to be, and the Prime Minister has to be, a more listening Prime Minister. A Prime Minister who dialogues more with his people and engages more.
I regret to inform you are past the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize